This is Equip and Engage, a podcast by Subsplash, exploring how ministry, technology, and innovation come together to equip churches around the world to engage their communities.
Hey, welcome to Equip and Engage. I'm Chris, part of the team here at Subsplash. Really excited to have you along for another episode in our series, See the Good, in which we are interviewing pastors, leaders, CEOs, executives, many others, just to hear what they're experiencing right now in the midst of some unprecedented global circumstances. Today, I'm joined by Jamie Winship, founder of Identity Exchange. Jamie, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really good to connect with you in this strange format. I know we're just a few miles away from each other here in Seattle, but here we are, just locked down at home, making it happen, still having some cool conversations. So thanks again.
Yep. Yep.
I'd love to dig right in and just begin to hear your perspective on what you're seeing in the world right now and in your surroundings. But even before we do that, would you just go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself and Identity Exchange and the community that you're part of? What are you up to?
Yeah. Just my background was in the police department in Washington, D.C., where I'm from. Was recruited by the U.S. government in my fifth year as a detective to challenge to go overseas and work in counterterrorism kind of stuff. And so we've spent 27 years actually overseas working in different conflict zones around the Middle East. So from 1990 to 2016 was our time overseas.
Wow,
Came
that's
back.
incredible.
Yeah. It's been quite a life. And so and we discovered in all of that work and all of those different conflict zones was interestingly that identity was the key factor in countering militant movements, actually. And so came back in the US and moved into the Pacific Northwest and decided we should probably try and see if everything we've learned overseas would work in a US city. And so we've started Identity Exchange, is the name of our company. And so we've been doing that here in the Seattle area we're just started our third year.
Wow, that's incredible. So from one Washington around the world for a decade and a half to another Washington, working with
Right.
Seattleites. That's
Yeah.
incredible. What kind of people are you working with just day to day, and what's the nature of the conversations you're having with them?
Well, so we work really with all kinds of people. We've done work in public schools, done work with police departments,
Yeah,
with religious organizations, and then marketplace. All kinds of different groups.
yeah.
Anywhere where there's where conflict prevents creativity and growth.
Wow.
So that's pretty much everywhere, actually.
Yeah, that sounds like about everywhere.
Yeah,
Thanks. Well, I can
that's
tell
right.
already you're going to bring some really cool perspective to this, just and what's going on in the world right now. So we just love to open it up and hear from you. Where are you seeing the good in your surroundings and even in the world right now?
Well, we have an interesting perspective because I've lived in a lot of places. My wife and I and our kids were always with us. And we've lived in scenarios where we've been in lockdown, so to speak, for 14 months at a time because we're living in a city that's in a war zone. And we weren't military, so we lived just among the regular population wherever the conflict was occurring. And so a lot of that time, we didn't have freedom of movement because we were
Yeah.
foreigners or whatever. And so we've learned over the years to really value those times. And kind of our thing that we've really learned, and we're practicing it here, is that times of chaos or what seems like disorder are times to reorder. That's
Mm,
chaos
wow.
can lead to incredible creativity because systems move from order to disorder to reorder. And
Yeah.
so the disorder, although it's uncomfortable, is always valuable for reordering things that you might not have even thought about. So that's always an advantage to this type of situation.
Yeah. That's very interesting perspective, and just crazy to think how this is not the first time you've been in this sort of situation. Obviously, very different circumstances, but in terms of stay at home and lockdown for extended periods of time, you're back in this. Probably didn't expect it would be in the U.S. as soon as it has come.
Yeah, that's right.
Crazy to
Exactly.
think about, but I really love that just that sequence you described from disorder to reorder is what you said. Is that right?
Right. from order to disorder to reorder. You can't go from order to reorder without disorder. It's
Yeah.
impossible. We
Yeah.
tried to, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that
Right.
everybody listening would agree with you that what's happening right now looks something like disorder. So yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear it. Just the opportunity that you see in that is really cool. Well,
Yeah.
how are you seeing, your organization, could be your organization or could just be people in general. How are you seeing them sort of adapt and change for the better in the midst of this disorder moving toward reorder?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I mean, for us in our vocational life, if you can imagine, so we weren't just locked down with our family, we were locked down with our work team. So if
Yeah.
you can imagine that you're in a small single dwelling location with 8 of your coworkers. And
Wow.
so not only do you have to adjust just in your own personal life, in your family life, but you're adjusting that close proximity with other people.
Sure.
And so one of the things that happens is you learn very quickly how much time you spend self-protecting and self-promoting in relationships on a regular basis. When you're in close proximity, that self-protecting and self-promoting actually creates separation in a team, in a marriage, in a parent-child relationship,
Yeah.
because you can't be your true self when you're self-protecting and self-promoting. So when your system gets thrown out of whack and everything that you depend on kind of gets taken away from you, the real you is there, the
Yeah.
true you. And for a lot of us, that is not where we want to be. We avoid
Yeah.
that most of our life, even unintentionally. We just don't know what the real me is like because I have so many props and things around me to depend on.
Yeah.
So again, that's a value of being in a chaotic system. Yeah, is to discover, who am I really? What do I really depend on? What things do I get identity from that aren't actually stable or real?
Yeah.
And when those go away, then you get to look at yourself really clearly and honestly in the mirror and say, wow. But actually, you end up being quite surprised that the real you is much greater, much more compassionate, much more creative than the imposter self that we live in so much. So.
Interesting. Wow, that's really fascinating to me. And I'm just curious, in the conversations you're having with people in this time, what sort of conclusions are they coming to, or what growth are they achieving? I mean, what's sort of the impact of that whole process you just described?
Well, the thing that you want to make sure that you're doing in a time of disorder is that you're truth telling.
Mm.
You want to, and so that means embracing pretty aggressively and without strongly is negative emotion. Negative emotion tells a person what they believe about themselves, the world that they're in, or people around them that's false. That's the value of negative emotion. So when that fear starts creeping up, it's like we want to use the fear. It's a help to us if we'll face it and go through it rather than try and find ways to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that's a value. And just I'm challenging people, tell me what you're afraid of. When did you learn to be afraid of these things?
Yep.
That kind of thing, super valuable. And as people embrace it, it takes away their fear. And then when you come into the reorder, you're reordering minus things that you were afraid of, or things about yourself that you were afraid of, that the disorder reveals. And now you're out of it. And hopefully
Yep.
you come out at another level of yourself.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to hear what you'll say to this. What do you think will be some of the positive long-term impact of all of this change? What do you think it's going to look like when the dust settles, so to speak?
Right. Well, I hope, one, that we'll value community more.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to one of my friends today, and one of my coworkers, and she said, I just miss, going down to the coffee shop and just
Yep.
being together with people. So
Absolutely.
I hope, and especially in our culture that tends to be isolated anyway, that we'll really see the value of just my identity being with other identities and how well they work together and how much we need
Yep.
each other. Maybe more than anything else, that one, because we are moving into isolation, and this kind of threw us way deeper into it than we anticipated. So I'm
Yes.
hoping we'll learn the balance between Zoom and face-to-face, being able to actually have contact with people, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, I'd also be curious just to hear, in this season, what are some things that you're implementing, even for yourself, or it could be for organization, just some change that you're intentionally seeking out, ways you're pivoting that you're seeing some benefit from?
Yeah. So just one little process that we actually used to teach with people involved in militant groups and all of that, but was a simple process. We called it truth tell, mind change, form change. It's just a little circular process that we do every day. So every morning when I get up, I'm like, okay, I want to say out loud the truth of how I feel about the situation that I'm in today. What's the truth?
Yeah.
Because if we won't tell the truth, then there's no chance for our mind to change on issues, right?
Absolutely.
And then the mind change allows for form change. So let's just get in the practice of waking up saying, I'm disoriented, I'm scared, I'm concerned about our economic future. I realize I can't rely on the economic system to provide for me forever,
right.
that it's volatile. We can tell the truth about that, which allows me to think about money in a different way, which allows me to think about relationship in a different way, and then actually to change the form of how I do things. So just that little process, truth tell, mind change, form change, so that when as we come out of this, we not only are better truth tellers, that we're willing, our mind is more flexible about things, and we're willing to change the form of things, which most of us won't do. Yeah. We get in these fear loops and this fear repetition, and we won't change it until something like this happens. And it's an opportunity. But we just have these simple processes that we walk people through. And because we always worked in times of pretty intense conflict and trauma,
right,
that kind of thinking and self-awareness allows you to it's amazing what humans are capable of. Is unbelievable. It's beautiful, and what they can go through, and how resilient they actually are. So this is a time to see that, to exercise that.
I love that little process. It's so simple and yet also really incisive. That's great. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing tomorrow morning. Thanks for that, Jamie. Much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is really good. I just love your perspective on this, Jamie. So really, thanks for taking a few minutes here just to tell us how you're seeing the world right now, and tell us what it's going to look like in a couple of months or a year from now in your perspective anyway. So
yeah,
so good. Thanks again, Jamie. And thanks also to everyone for checking out Equip and Engage. We'll be back for more episodes just like this, talking to leaders like Jamie to hear their perspectives on these current events. And I think learning just a lot along the way. So make sure you're following or subscribe just to catch these future conversations. Thanks again, Jamie. Thanks everyone for checking this out.
Thanks for tuning in to Equip and Engage, where we're sharing insights learned from thousands of conversations with leaders and pastors around the world. To follow along with these conversations, subscribe today or visit our website.